This is part 7 of my monthly HDR series. Just one of those things that has always been popular. People seem to like it. And I love HDR. It's one of my favorite types of photography. So what I'm going to do is I want to show you the reason why I shoot brackets for HDR. And so I took this shot actually this past weekend. This is only a few days ago. I was in San Francisco. And we found this, there's this abandoned pool house behind the San Francisco Zoo that we kind of trespassed into a little bit, but it's okay. No one was there, no one was hurt, thankfully. So what I did was I bracketed this image because there are a lot of details that, watch, if we kind of go to this exposure here, this exposure metered off of the bright area over here. So we got the exposure details here, but look, we lost all this detail in the foreground. And then also, if we go back to this image, you see the detail we have through the broken wall over here? That's detail that we lost. So, so what we're going to do is I'm going to take these images and I'm going to tone map them really quickly. I don't want to spend too much time tone mapping because I want to spend a little bit more time stylizing. So I'm going to send them to Photomatix Pro, and I'm just going to hit export. Gary's asking, where do I find these places? In all honesty, I didn't. My friends who I was visiting in San Francisco, they were the ones that kind of coordinated this. So I owe it to them for orchestrating this, which is really fantastic. So watch, you can see that this image here is a bit bright. So a lot of things need to be changed up. But if we look through here, you see we have the detail through the wall, but we also have the detail in the foreground. So I'm going to start by, first of all, dropping the luminosity a bit. And then I'm also going to drop the gamma, which is the overall brightness of the scene. And then we start filling. I'm going to drop detail contrast. I'm going to increase luminosity again. And now you can start to see that this is a pretty even exposure here. I'm going to go ahead here and make it a little bit brighter, and there we go. And actually, Hank wants to see where I took it. All right, I'll show you. Give me 1 second here. Let's go to Maps, and we'll do the San Francisco Zoo. I think I'll remember it. I know it was along the there. Here we go. Okay, so this is it right here. Wait, where was it? It was along the water. Oh, there it is. There it is. It's this building right here. See it? There's, here, there we go, street view. So right over here is, there's a pathway that goes down. And so this building is actually huge. It's massive. And so we spent about 3 hours shooting in here. Definitely do not go by yourself. It was actually really sketchy in there, but it was worth it. So, all right. So here's the staircase. I'm going to save and re-import to bring it back into Lightroom, and then I'm going to send it over to the suite. So watch. Look at the difference between the before and the after here. Let's just compare these two. So just, look over here on the wall. All the difference that we have, all the details that were lost, we have over here. So there we go. All right. So I'm going to send this over to the suite by going to File, Plug in Extras, and go into Perfect Photo Suite. Mark's asking if Photomatix is my primary HDR engine. It is. What about Nick's product? Mark, I actually, Nick just released HDR Effects Pro 2 a couple of weeks ago. And I was on their beta program, and I was actually playing around with it, and I really like it. And so I was thinking, I'm trying to figure out a way to use it on a webinar so that people can see other solutions. Is it really okay? Yeah, absolutely. What was my camera's exposure time and f-stop? Well, the exposure time varies from bracket to bracket. So Mark, these exposures change. This one was 1.6 seconds. right over here, but they were all f10, and it was with my Canon 17mm tilt shift lens. Is this a fairly wide-angle lens? Yeah, Doug, it's a 17mm tilt shift lens on a 5D Mark III, so it's a full-frame sensor. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this over to effect so that we can start stylizing. Do I shoot in aperture priority? No, Jack, I shoot in manual, actually, always. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead here to the photo filters, and the first thing I'm going to do is I want to apply an effect that will basically apply to the whole image. And the first one that I'm going to do, actually it's under movie looks, is grunge. Now the reason why I want to do grunge is because it's going to bring out the texture and it's going to help desaturate the image a bit. I'm going to start by bringing it down to 0, and I'm going to bring it up just a bit here, about halfway. And you can see what it does. It does a really nice job of kind of making the image look a little bit more even. If we turn off the preview, you can see that it's just a bit too hot. It's really warm, the color temperature. So this helps kind of cool it off. Now, with that done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply an effect like thermopylae. Again, also under the movie looks category. And thermopylae, I only really wanted to apply to the stairs. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that masking brush here and I'm going to bring up the inspector and hit invert. And what invert does is it hides the thermopylae effect and it puts my brush into a paint in mode. So what I can do now is paint in the effect on the stairs, and I'm just going to do a quick job here. You guys know, not a big fan of spending a lot of time on webinars showing you how to mask just because it's really boring. But I want to do as good of a job as possible so we can get the full effect. So I'm just going to paint right through up here. And then I'm also going to turn the mask on. So if you go to Show Mask and then go to Overlay, you can see the pattern here. So anywhere where this overlay pattern is removed, that's where the effect is applied. So it's a pretty good mask. I'm going to change the paint out here, and I'm just going to, this little part right here that I got, I want to mask that back out. All right, let's hide that mask. It's good enough for now. How did I get the black mask, Bob's asking? So here's what I did. I selected the masking brush. It's the first tool on the tool wheel, and then the last tool is the inspector. So here's the inspector, and there's a button here called invert, and invert flips the mask. So you can see, oh, I'm painting out actually. Let me just get this information here. Hank is keeping me honest with my mask. Does Perfect Photo Suite have an auto mask feature? No, Matt, it doesn't. It doesn't have edge detection, is what you're asking. You just kind of have to draw. All right, let's hit add and let's keep going on. Now what I want to do is I want to bring out the walls a bit. So I'm thinking something like maybe, let me see what Moulin Rouge does. So I love what Moulin Rouge does to the walls. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the strength down to 0, bring it down somewhere around there. And again, just like before, I'm going to take my masking brush, bring up the inspector, and then hit invert. And with the brush now in a paint in mode, I'm just going to go ahead here and start painting in the effect. Again, I'll bring up the mask just to make sure that I don't miss any areas. And I'm going to do this entire wall here too. Okay, we're almost done. Get the back wall as well. And I'll get through the wood too because there's a wall back there as well. So, and again, you know, you want to, typically when you're doing this for production or you're doing it to share online, you want to make sure that you have a clean mask that you get right to the edge. So there we go. Let's hide the mask. And so we're getting there. This is actually looking really good. Why not copy the mask from before? I could have. I could have copied the mask from this thermopylae effect and then inverted it. But for me, it was just easier to paint it in. Absolutely. All right. So with that done, now let's hit add. And there are two more effects I'm going to apply really quickly. The first is under color and tone. My favorite is tonal contrast. See how that brings out texture? I'm going to bring that slider down to 0. Don't want too much texture, but something around there. I'll hit add. Next, I'm going to go to the glow category. And I'm going to go to something like Dreamland. So Dreamland gives the image this really nice rich glow, but also just like the tonal contrast, you don't want too much of it. Somewhere around there, maybe 40%. And so we have this really awesome look right now. Watch, if you want to toggle the before and after preview, just hit Command P on a Mac or Control P on a PC. So here's what we started with, and then this is our stylized. I'll do it a little slower. Here's the original. That's the after. Last thing I want to do now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go back to movie looks, and I'm going to apply cyberpunk. But watch what I'm going to do with it. I really only want the floor to be cyberpunk. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it to 0, and I want to cool off that floor just a bit, somewhere like around there. And then I'm going to go one more time, masking brush, invert, and I'm going to paint that floor in because I want the floor to have its own kind of identity. I want it to break off because right now you can't tell the difference between the floor and where the stairs start. So I'm just going to kind of get that right there. Maybe bring it up a bit more. Somewhere around there. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to paint out. I'm going to paint this thing out. I don't want that to be blue either. And all these little things that you do just kind of help separate the different elements of your scene, which I'm a huge fan of. See what I'm doing is I'm kind of painting out all the refuse and the junk on the ground. That helps all the stuff stand off of the floor. Like a little spray can right there. And then the tiny little caution tape. I'm going to paint that out. I'm telling you, all these little things that you do really add up. Let me just get this. So there we go. I mean, the floor is looking really awesome right now. If I do say so myself. So let's hit apply and let's return back to Lightroom, and we're going to finish things off in Lightroom. There's still a few more things I want to do. How many HDR images will I process in a week? Bob, how many HDR images will I process in a week? It depends. Some nights I'll process 3 or 4 images, and then I'll go a few days without doing anything. I only process when I really kind of feel like I'm in the mood to. Thankfully, I no longer really need to process for work. Like when I had my photo business, my commercial business, I had to get work done on a deadline. Now I don't really have to do that anymore. And David's asking if I use a Wacom. Absolutely, David. I use a Wacom every day. This one I have at my desk is an Intuos 4 large tablet. At my desk, at my actual desk, not in the webinar studio, I have an Intuos 5, and then at home I have an Intuos 5. And whenever I travel, I have another Intuos 5. So I'm obsessed with my tablets. All right. So what I'm going to do now is this is something I want you guys to pay attention to. On the develop module, and I kind of started taking to showing people this on the webinars. These 4 sliders here, highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. This is under the basic panel in Lightroom 4, technically 4.1. If you press and hold the Option key, now again, press and hold. Don't just press and let go. You want to hold it. Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on a PC. Watch what happens when I drag on these sliders. You see what happens? The screen turns black and you have these little dots. Those dots are blown out information. And so what that's showing me is that for the highlights, that area there is blown out. So I'm going to drag my highlight slider to the left a bit until the dots disappear. And so you can see that basically it was showing me that in this area here, there were some blown out highlights. Same thing with the shadows. If I press and hold there, the screen turns white, and you can see these dots here. I'm not going to bring out the shadows too much because I don't mind having some blown out information. I'm going to repeat the process with the white point. White point's pretty much on target, and the black point's on target. What this lets me do now is adjust an overall exposure, bring out the contrast, bring out clarity in the whole image. And watch what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take my adjustment brush here. I'm going to select exposure, and I'm going to drop the exposure down a bit. And what I want to do is I want to kind of darken this side of the stairs, and then this side as well. And same thing with the ground. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a little bit of a path. Now, with that done, I'm going to hit New, and I'm going to create another brush, except I'm going to make it a little bit brighter, and I'm going to brighten this middle part. And you can kind of see what I'm doing here is I'm getting this nice little pathway going. I can go back and select that first brush if I want to make it even darker, just by selecting the little selection pip and bring it down a bit so it gets really dark. I might start bringing a little bit more over here. And then go back to this one and make it a little bit brighter. There. So now we have this kind of path going through. Next thing I'll do is I'm going to drop the overall temperature of the image, make it a bit cooler, just a tiny bit, because it's a bit too hot for me. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my adjustment brush again, create a new brush. This time I'm going to select clarity, jack that up, jack up contrast, and a little bit of saturation. And I'm going to paint on areas of graffiti that I find interesting. And what that brush is going to do is it's going to help make that pop even more. And so I'm going to get this information right here, and then on the stairs here. Actually, I want this window, and then just some of the graffiti on the sides of the stairs. And then this one right here. And that's pretty much it. Actually, the last thing I'll do is I'll close this. I'm going to add a vignette. Going to burn the edges a bit, bring it down towards the center. And so that's our image. This is our stylized Urbex image. I love it. It looks awesome to me. Brian's Stairway to Heaven. I dig that, Alan. I dig that a lot. Are there any special considerations regarding printing HDR images? It's a great question, Gary. What I would make sure of is you don't want to over-sharpen your image if you're going to print. I mean, you want it to be sharp, but you don't want it to be so sharp that you actually see it on the print. And then the other thing I like to do when I print is when I print, I tend to make the image a little bit flatter than normal, so that when it prints, it doesn't actually look too punchy. So in that respect, I might drop the contrast a tiny bit. And do I bracket manually, Sparks is asking. I don't. My 5D Mark III can bracket up to 7 exposures, which is, as you can see here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the tone mapped image. This is the stylized image. So you can see this is what we went for tone mapping, and then we kind of brought it to this really grungy place. All right, another kind of urbexy scene we're going to do right now. This one was taken in Nebraska. I was with Nicole Young, who's a photographer, and also actually my girlfriend. And we were just driving around looking for random things, and we came across this awesome garage. So what I did was I bracketed it because, as you can see, to get all of the detail, like the detail through the tire over here, you needed a bright exposure, but if you scroll over, we actually had some body to the sky. Oh, Nathan. Nathan Cudell's here. Nathan's actually one of our tech support reps. I'm glad that he's listening to the webinars. Am I happy with the way the Mark III creates the HDR images? Yeah, Jack, I am. I missed my promote control. I still have it, but it's nice not having to have something hang off the camera. and the camera itself takes the brackets faster than the Promote does. So those are the few things. All right, let's start off really quickly. Tone map. Get that nice even exposure. Funny, David. I liked your comment. All right, so the default settings actually here that we have are pretty good. The only thing I'm going to do is bring out the luminosity a little bit and increase the gamma just a little bit, just to make it a bit brighter, even a little bit more. Now that I see it, that's good. That's good. Just a little bit brighter than normal, because when we stylize, it tends to darken the image a lot. Save and re-import. Let's do a quick compare between these two images. So you can see down here, good detail. Detail in the sky that we don't have. Detail throughout the image, really, is what we got. So I'm going to go ahead and send this over to Photoshop, actually. And the reason for that is I want to get rid of those power lines. So I'm going to try to use the content-aware fill. Or rather, the content-aware healing brush. So I'm going to go here, really quick swipe through this wire. I'll take care of those little ends in a minute. Why is it not sampling? Oh, I know why. There's just not enough room for it to sample from. I got it. All right, that's good. And then here, here, there. All right. For the rest of the stuff, I'm going to take a clone stamp, make that a bit smaller. Let's get from right there. From here, I'm going to take this. Get that. Then from here, I'm going to target that. Oops. Let's get this over here. And let's get that over there. So you see it's a little bit of a blending work that we need to do. It's never really a big deal, especially I'm just thankful that it was relatively easy in terms of the pattern. There wasn't too much, it's just a flat sky, so that's good. And then this I'll just kind of, there we go. I'll deal with the rest later if there are any blending issues. I'm worried that there's going to be a little bit of a blending issue. Let me just go here. That'll work. All right, so with that done, I'm going to go over right from Photoshop. I'm here. I might as well just go to File, Automate, and then select Perfect Effects. No, Andrea, I started the image in Lightroom, and I went to Photomatics to get the tone mapped image. Then I took the tone mapped image to Photoshop to get rid of those little wires. I can see there's going to be an issue here, and I actually have something I'm going to do probably to just, because I'm going to be lazy. But let's start stylizing. For this particular image, I'm thinking movie looks and then Blue Dawn. Now with the Blue Dawn effect applied, I'm going to go to the blending options. So the blending options button is hidden if you're in the basic mode. Watch, let me cancel out of here. By default, when you go into Perfect Effects, you're in the basic mode. Notice how there is no blending option button. If you go to Advanced, there's the blending options. And I'm going to go to the blending modes, and I'm going to cycle through. I start usually with Multiply, Soft Light, and Hard Light. I actually like Hard Light a lot. I'm going to bring that down to 0, the strength it is, and then just bring it up slowly, like around here. Good baseline image, or baseline effect rather. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Add, and I'm going to go to the photo filters and go to the green enhancer, and I'm going to bring out the greens in the kind of weeds. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that hue slider, I'm going to bring that over a little bit to the left, and then I'm going to bring the overall strength to 0. And I'm only going to bring it up about 30% just to make it pop. All right, hit add. So I'm adding new effect layers as I start working on this. Go back to movie looks here. Now I'm thinking about what I can do for the brick here. And I'm thinking something like, what would work well? Maybe Omaha Beach might work well for the brick. I kind of like that. Bring that to 0. Just a bit about there. Take the masking brush just like we did before. Bring up the inspector and hit invert. And then just paint it in the entire brick, or this wall here, the brick face. Again, you can always show the mask just to see what you're doing. So you can see here, I missed this entire area up here. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time just because masking is boring. Okay, with that done, let's go ahead and select paint out and get rid of the sky and a little bit of sky right there. Okay. All right, so we've got that effect going for the wall. The next thing I'm going to do, let me make it a bit stronger actually. I want those windows to pop some, so I'm going to go to Moulin Rouge again. Go to the masking brush, invert it, and I'm just going to paint it onto the windows. And I really like what it does here. It almost wipes away the haze that was on the window. So you can see here. And you'll get, I mean, if you're not used to perfect effects, you'll get used to it. I mean, in terms of the effects that are in here. Perfect effect is one of those things where I can't teach you which effects are best. It's really up to you. What I can show you is how I use the effects. I'm actually going to see what it does on the, oh, I actually like what it does on the doors here. So I'm going to paint it in there too. There we go. Oops, let me get rid of that right there. All right, keep on going. We're not done yet. Next thing I want is the tire to come out a little bit. And so something like, let me see what the pastel colors does for the tire. I actually like that a lot. So for pastel colors, it looks good on the tire, and I kind of like what it does to these rusted drums. So again, masking brush, invert, paint it on the tire. And paint it on the drums. Let me see what it does to this table. Well, that's okay. I'll keep that. All right. Last thing I'm going to do is hit add. Go to the glow. I'm not going to do a tonal contrast because this image is already texturized. I'm going to do something like deep forest. Go to the blending options and then change the blending options to probably soft light. Let me see, soft light, hard light, multiply. I'll do soft light with a very small amount. There we go. So here's the before, Command or Control P. And then here's the after. Let's hit apply. And we'll fix things up in Lightroom. What's the key command to bring up the inspector, Andrew? Just the letter I. If you press I on your keyboard, it'll bring up the inspector. And how do you get the masking brush to activate? You can either hit B mark to bring up the brush, or you can hit the brush icon from the tool well on the top left. All right, so here we are in Photoshop. I'm just going to hit save because I like to finish my images up in Lightroom. So here it is. My image is already ready to go. So what I'm going to do now is take an adjustment brush, and same thing. I'm going to start with this clarity brush. I'm going to make it a little bit stronger. And this is what I'm going to use to bring out texture in certain areas like the tire and then the drums. Also the font here, or rather, you see the letters. See how that brush really brings that out? Bring it on the door, bring it on the windows. I use this brush. The brush is just a combination of clarity and contrast. And I use that to bring out texture on certain areas in my scene. You don't want to bring it out throughout the entire image because the whole image will get too sharp. Richard's asking a really good question. We get this question a lot. Richard's question is, are the effects remembered between sessions? My answer there is yes and no, Richard. Technically, no, in terms of if I go back and if I take this image here and I send it back to Perfect Effects, it'll treat it as a new session, meaning it won't remember the effects. However, Perfect Effects, if you go to the presets category, will remember the last, I think, 7 times you hit apply. And so if you do that, so watch, if I take, let's start over for really one quickly. Let's take this image. This is my tone mapped image here. I'm going to send it over straight to the suite. I don't have to go to Lightroom or to Photoshop. I'm not worried about it. So from the suite, I'm going to go to Effects. Now let's say you want to recreate this. What I was saying is if you go to the presets folder and you go to recently used, here are your last 9 steps. Now watch what happens. Here's the not the problem, but here's the limitation. Recently used one was the last thing we did. Now it'll bring it back as a preset here, except what it doesn't maintain are the masks. So watch, if I hit expand, here, remember we did Blue Dawn, Green Enhancer, Omaha Beach, Moulin Rouge, Pastel, and Deep Forest. You have to start going back, like Green Enhancer or Omaha Beach. Remember we masked out the wall, so I would have to go here and mask it back in. Oh, I have to make sure that I'm in paint in mode. So I'd have to start painting this back in. That's the only thing you're going to have to do. All right, last image. Also from Nebraska. This corn grain elevator went there on a Sunday, the Sunday before 4th of July, just a few weeks or earlier, a month ago actually. And no one was here. And what's awesome is that a day or two later when we came back, this train was already moved. So we got in at the right time, Nicole and I. And so, good shot, except we don't really have any information in the garage. And we have blown out information in the sky back here. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to the brackets. Sometimes I talk faster than I think. And I'm going to send them over to Photomatics, just like we did before. Hit export. And there we go. So, good start. Going to have to adjust a few things like drop the luminosity. Gamma, let's see here. Just trying to find a good even spot. Something like this, bring out the gamma, drop detail contrast, drop the white point. Now we have 2 of the white point. Okay, bring it out a bit. See what I'm doing is I'm just adjusting these sliders accordingly. The more you do this, the more comfortable you start to get with what these sliders do. All right, somewhere around here, again, like I said, I usually like to start with a brighter than normal shot, but you can see we have all this detail over here. So we'll save and re-import and take this image straight into the suite so that we can begin stylizing. Now I know right off the bat the first effect that I'm going to apply over here is under the Movie Looks category, one of my favorite effects from Photo Tools, and that's Urban Sickness. It gives me my foundation. I'm almost tempted to keep it at 100%, but that wouldn't be the way I teach. I'm going to practice how I teach and bring it to 0. And actually, yeah, about 85%. We'll hit add. Now, what I want to do is I want to play off those yellows in the train. And something like Havana, watch what Havana will do. It really pops yellows. I'm going to bring that down to 0, bring it up a bit, and I'm going to test the blending modes. Now, I'm letting the effect apply to the whole scene just for now, but I'm going to go here and see what multiply. Ooh, I like multiply. Soft light, hard light. I like hard light. Hard light does a really cool job here, and I actually like what it does to the blue. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go and invert, take the masking brush, and paint Havana in the entire train. I thought maybe I'd keep it only to the yellow, but I really like what it does to this foreground right here. Love it, actually. There we go. Let me bring up the mask. Make sure I get every little juicy detail. Okay. Good enough for now. If I had more time, I would actually bring a really tiny brush and zoom in and get like these handlebars. But maybe if I, yeah, you see what's happening? Is it's getting beyond that. I don't want that. And I don't have the time to, you just have to visualize. I know I'm missing some spots here because I could see it in my mask preview. Oops. There we go. All right, let's hit add. Next thing I'm going to do is go to the color and tone, add tonal contrast. I actually like what it's doing to the whole scene. You can see these sliders over here. The one that I use a lot is called shadows, and what that is that it's a shadow recovery slider, so it brings out shadow details. I'm going to bring that to 0, and I'm going to keep it up right around there. Now I'm actually especially loving what's happening over here in the background because it looks like this kind of explosion is going on back there. And I love that. So you can see the before and the after. Again, Command P. I mean, this is a major change from here to there with just 3 effects. I like to always finish with a glow. Here, something like Dreamland will probably be good. Ooh, that's pretty awesome. I'm going to bring that to 0. And keep it about halfway. I'm going to take my masking brush, though. I'm going to bring the opacity to about 40%, and I'm going to just remove some of it from the top here because I started losing too much of that detail. So let's hit apply. Are there a list of hotkeys? Yeah, Richard. If you go in any of the products, if you go to Help, and then show keyboard shortcuts, it'll bring up a list of all the keyboard shortcuts. Can you invert a mask that was created? Absolutely, Charles. Just bring up the inspector and click on invert. Both Gary and ask a similar question, whether I use a tripod or auto mode. Gary J, I use my tripod all the time. It's very rare that you'll ever catch me not using a tripod. So, is there a drop-down selection from blending mode? Yeah, David. Let me go back into effects really quickly to show you. So, David, check it out over here. I'm just going to take this fade to black and white effect, which is actually pretty cool in and of itself. So, David, what you do for the blending mode is you bring the blending options dialog box up, and then the first drop-down, blending mode. These are your blending modes. So as you highlight over them, man, that's actually pretty cool. So that's how you do it. Both Hank and Stu asked the same question. Can the list of shortcuts be printed out? Not that I know of in terms of, you could do screenshots and print them out, but there is no printout that I know of. Go reach out to Nathan on our support team and he'll let you know. Because clearly if he's able to attend these webinars, he's... oh, is there a PDF, Nathan? Why don't you drop a link for me over here? That would be fantastic. All right, so let's hit save and finish things up in Lightroom. All right, so here is the image. Let's go to the develop module. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press and hold the Option key on a Mac and the Alt key on a PC and drag these 4 sliders: highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. So the white point, get that. Shadows, I'll bring out some of those shadow details like over here. White point is good. Black point is there. That's better. And now I'm going to go ahead, keep the exposure. Definitely bring out some contrast. Bring out some clarity. And bring out some vibrance. And that's looking pretty good. All right, what I'm going to do here for I'm going to put in the chat list. Nathan was kind enough to get the URL for us. So if you look at the chat list, I put a URL to a PDF. This is from our user guide. And Nathan says page 32 has the shortcut keys for Perfect Effects 3. Thank you, Patty. Good to see you again. I haven't seen you in a while. What key do you press to get the white or black point, Mark? Okay, one more time. So in Lightroom, what Mark wants to know is how you get the white and black point. Press and hold the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on a PC. And you'll know this because watch, look here where my cursor is. It says tone. When you press and hold, it says reset tone. So as long as you're holding and you drag any of these sliders, it'll give you information. What you want is to make sure that you don't see any of this. Drag the slider until it disappears. Oh, cool. So you're in the Pacific Northwest too, Patty. That's cool. Do the optimum keys work in Photoshop too? I'm not sure what that means. So Gary, yeah, Gary's bringing up a point. What Gary's saying is that in Lightroom, there's an indicator that the metadata is not being synced. It's a known issue. Basically what Gary's referring to is right here, this little icon. Suite 6, unfortunately, doesn't preserve metadata. And so that's a bug that we're actually working on and fixing. But it's a known issue. Oh, I see those Optim. I didn't really. I don't know if they work in Photoshop, Claire. And yeah, so Charles is saying to use the J key to show the highlight and shadow clipping. Absolutely. I just, for some reason, I really like just kind of going through these sliders here. But you can see here the indicator. You might not be able to see, like, you see these patterns here, these blue colors. That's indicating that there's clipping. And you can toggle that by clicking on these arrows as well. What's my favorite effect to use, Gary? I'd have to say probably Deep Forest Glow and Tonal Contrast.